Have you ever tried widowhood grant or a combination of it?
I've thought about it several times, Phil, and there'd been two very good reasons I haven't tried it, and probably wrong. But the one that stood out as much as anything was insecurity. To go down to the loft and have a look there in May and see 40 pigeons, to get through a season under our conditions here, I didn't have the confidence. To me it was like starting a round of golf with one ball. I wasn't going to get very far. I also preferred racing hens. I got a lot of pleasure out of racing hens. They were easy to train, in my view, easy to get fit. I didn't like the cocks' lack of work. Their ethic to work was very poor. I didn't have much tolerance with them, so I was put off of cocks.
How would you describe a fit pigeon, Grant?
What I look for in a fit pigeon is a pigeon that's got good feather, silky, its neck feathers are tight, got an extremely good shine about it, eyes are clear. Also in the loft, they leave a trail behind them, very good, clear, firm droppings. When your pigeons get extremely well, your loft becomes white. You get down feather on the droppings at night, scale off the pigeons, the outside tail flights. There's white on the outside tail flights. That becomes more pronounced when a pigeon is fit. They look relaxed on the perch. They don't get flappy. They don't use a lot of energy.
Do you educate your birds to feed and drink in the hampers before you start racing and training, Grant?
No, I don't. I'm probably remiss there. I don't think, well, I think it's a positive thing to do it. Early in their racing career, when they're in a new environment, struggling to find out where the food and water is, although they should be pretty quick to do so, it's an advantage if they're used to it. I haven't done it.
When do you start training your pigeons? What would the distance of the first toss be, Grant?
Well, that's a two-edged question, Phil. When I was flying in Adelaide, we would have our birds working towards an Anzac Day toss, so we'd have them up and around for about a month beforehand. When they were doing it well enough, we used to toss around about Anzac Day because it was a month before the season start. If they're going well enough, we toss them, and there'd be Leo Jewitts, Fred DeMella, Andrew Muirhead, and others. But my first toss used to be 60k along with those guys, and we used to go out to Dublin, and we would expect to get them home. In Canberra, where I have been racing recently, if I decided to have a first toss from 60k, I'd be struggling to get pigeons to the first race. So you've got to order your situation wherever you are.
Do you prefer headwind training or tailwind training?
I much prefer headwind training. They've got to do a bit of work. And I would rather them work into the headwind than have it easy over a distance, a longer distance maybe with a tailwind. I don't think there's the same benefit there. You've got to be mindful when you toss your pigeons what lies in front of them. If it's a very strong headwind, the pigeons are going to keep low. They're going to keep about fence height. If you've got a number of obstacles in their way, fences, telegraph wires, wires that go across paddocks, you can bring yourself undone. So if you've got that sort of environment, in safety first, maybe you're better going with a tailwind, but as a preference, I was a headwind person all the time.
What would be the most exciting race you've performed in, Grant, or your pigeons have performed in?
Well, the races that gave me the most satisfaction were all-day races or overnight races. I think all-day races over 500 miles when a group make it on the day are a true test of pigeons' quality. Overnight races, if there's none home on the night, the race is still open the next day, that's a big thrill. In terms of thrill, when I won Temora, it was a huge thrill. There were none on the night. I got one very early next day, and it was doubly a thrill because I beat John Pryor by about 30 seconds. Now, I can't recall beating John Pryor very often, so that was a significant day. But much rather distance races than sprint races, a lot more satisfaction in that.
Is there anything you would do differently for the longer races, like feeding or training, Grant?
Yes, Phil. I didn't particularly worry about working them too hard up until the derbies, but I certainly got stuck into them after the derbies. I fed differently as the distances got up, and the feeding is a very flexible thing. It can change from week to week. Depends on weather conditions, lines of flight, a number of factors. But essentially, I fed more carbohydrate after I got out for 300 miles. I trained the birds hard. Again, the same group of people when Johnny Pryor was here, Leo, the people from Hampstead. We used to have about a 70 or 80 mile toss, Leo, every week down to the south into a headwind. I didn't race them all that often, but I made sure that I kept them up to the mark with solid training. Feeding, I would add carbohydrates, like I said, rice, rapeseed, small seeds in their mix. We're in Canberra at the moment. We feed a lot of maize because they've got to have warmth just to keep alive on the perch at night. Feeding is flexible, but more carbohydrate for me anyway after the middle distance races.
Do you think the imported birds can compete against the old Aussie lines in the longer races, Grant?
Yes, Phil, they can do, and they have done. I've no doubt since the introduction of European pigeons to our system, they fly faster. No question about that. I think one of the things that European pigeons have done is primarily the pigeons we've gotten here are better suited up to 300 miles. A lot of them therefore just go like the clappers. They've got a different gait than the Australian pigeons. The ones that we've had for decades here, very strong, resistant distance pigeons, but they race like staying racehorses. They take time to settle, time to wind up, and then they run home. The European pigeons, my observation, just go flat out from the time they let go. That type of pigeon has difficulty sustaining its performance over 500 and 600 miles, although their sheer quality can get them through. I don't knock the European pigeons at all. They've added something to our sport, but if I were given the choice of flying a 600-mile race with Aussie pigeons as against European pigeons, I'd opt for the Aussie pigeons. It doesn't mean that the European pigeons can't beat them.
Do you like racing latebreds? And if you do, is there anything different you would do with them?
Yes, I did very much when I was in South Australia like racing latebreds. A couple of reasons for it is that they don't sit around during the molting period and the very warm summer months, sit on the roof and think life's a barbecue. They're up and about from day one because being latebreds, they've got to get up with the mob, they've got to compete with the mob, and they've got to earn their spot. A lot of our early round pigeons, if they're fed too heavily through the molt, sit on the loft roof, far too heavy. They then are difficult to get the weight off.
Is enough help for new flyers?
I'd like to see more. We've got a dwindling number of people in our sport, and if we've got somebody who wants to enter the sport, we've got to help them as much as we can. We try and make it as easy as we can for them. We want to make it simple for them. If we don't help them out with decent quality pigeons and they get walloped week after week, lose their pigeons, they're not going to be in the sport for too long. So if as a community we want to stay as strong as we can, yes, we've got to help these people. And in saying that, I have helped people. I'm not preaching and saying that others should do it. I've done it. And I believe it's essential because where are we going to finish up if we don't snatch every opportunity that we've got, help them out with pigeons, help them out with good advice, and we just might keep the sport rolling along for a good while.